Is that I think there's something really cool about the way you've lived, and my sort of first question of the interview portion of the chat is,
Mm,
have you always had that sort of confidence to sort of, to work as a dominatrix, to just decide
mm.
to leave your house and go to a house on wheels as you do now, and just kind of make these decisions, and just that
Yeah,
confidence, has that always been with you, Julie?
absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Up until, and it's funny because I was having a similar conversation with a friend the other day, and she says, "Have you always been this confident?" And I'm like, "Not in the slightest." And I think
Mm,
confidence comes with age and experience and knockbacks. I don't think it's something you're necessarily born with, is it?
mm,
And I was up to being sort of in my 30s, maybe. I was kind of a bit scared of my own shadow. I didn't feel confident. I was always doing something, but I wasn't as gregarious and out there and just kind of ballsy as I am now. But again, I just think that's age. Because when I was very young, looking back now, I had like a massive lack of cheerleaders. When I look back, like there wasn't really anybody encouraging me or supporting me or just going, yay. Do you know what I mean? And it sounds like worries me, but actually, it's kind of, I think that spurs you on to be quite independent, doesn't it? And without this sort of approval of people as well.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess living like that sort of has its risks too, because people,
Yeah.
again, you mentioned, without going into too much detail, you mentioned, off record, that sometimes people don't quite get you. And I wonder, as you've lived
Yeah.
and worked in Hull, and been, I guess, the alternative in Hull in
Yeah.
terms of your lifestyle and the way you've lived. Have you ever kind of, have there been any major challenges with that you've had to fight against?
Okay, so I think the main one is, and I think it's also quite unique to our city, which, bearing in mind, is my favourite city in the entire solar system. I love Hull, and I'm a massive advocate for the people and everything we offer and what we bring to everybody's table in the world. But the biggest challenge I've had to face was always the people of Hull,
Mm.
especially when obviously the dominatrix thing came out. Everybody was horrified, mortified. I was every derogatory sex worker name ever. And I'm like, to be fair, I've had a worse flow, and none of that bothers me in the slightest, because you can't get to my age, have done what I've done, and without having skin like a rhino. So none of that ever bothered me. But the whole folk are very, very difficult to win over.
Mm.
And I would get really, really, really loads of negative comments via Hull Daily Mail or Facebook or whatever, just about the profession or the way I looked or what
Mm.
have you. And, none of that bothered me. I didn't kind of, wasn't a pillow biter. I didn't go crying about it. I just thought, oh, bore off. I don't have to answer to you. But the only time I think I kind of seemed to earn my stripes with my fellow Hollandians
Mm.
was when they saw me out and about, sat on the street with somebody, chucking somebody a tent, putting on a gig for Christmas for anyone who's skin. And over the time, the comments became less and less negative and more, they saw me as Julie Preston, not
Mm.
Mistress Dita. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm. I
And
do.
because I'm more like self-funded, I'm not asking anybody for anything and what have you, don't deal in money, it's just donations. I kind of, that took a real long time for the people of Hull to think, hey, do you know what? She's one of our own, and actually she's all right.
Mm.
So I feel really grateful of that now, because I've got more and more support. And I said, we've got anybody 3 Facebook profiles, only because they're all full. I can't say I'm that popular, and I can't say I know the people. But these platforms, although they're a nightmare most of the time, they're brilliant platforms for shouting about. Okay, has anybody got a size 7 pair of trainers for a dude? I've only got a 6 in the boot of my car.
Mm.
At that point, by the time I'd got back to my house, normal house, on my house on wheels, there'd be about 4 pairs outside. And this is the power of this city. Like I say, we are quite hard, and we
Yeah.
don't let people in quickly, but you do have to earn the respect, don't you?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and it's an interesting point. You talk about, your charity work and the stuff you've done to help people. I wonder whether you're where your faith in people, despite the knockbacks, has come from. You will have seen the best and the worst of people in many senses over the years. So where does your faith in people come from, and how do you maintain that, Julie?
I don't know. I'm not particularly a cynical person, and I try not to judge. But I just think, innately. I mean, predominantly the human race are just really all on their ass, and we all do ridiculous things. But innately, we are great human beings, most people, and also generally the ones that are a bit horrible to you. There's a reason for that, isn't there? There's a reason. There's a reason why we all behave the way we do. So, I do have a lot of faith in humanity. Like I said, sometimes the human race as a group are just ridiculous. But ultimately, do you know what? We are just fellow humans, and I think it's innate in us to care. No, not everybody, and that's not compulsory, and that's fine. But the ones that do care make up for the ones that don't.
Absolutely, and I think that's a lovely message. And in terms of where you've kind of come from and the career path you've come from, is there anything? Again, you sort of seeing people in many different lights, as we've just mentioned. Is there anything you miss about the sort of regular dominatrix work? And because again, you sort of see some really interesting characters, and you meet some really interesting characters, I imagine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, that wasn't a job or a career that I ever thought I would get into, and it's purely by chance, and I'll come to that shortly. But it just seemed to be a really good, suitable job for somebody who looked like me, who is the oldest of 9, very formidable. I'm an Aries. I'm bossy. I've always had to be a manager in every job I've done. I've always just got to be. So I was like, that was a really obvious job, and I don't know why I didn't think about it sooner. But what I will say is, coming from being dragged up on Esler Road, a little scratter with literally nothing, and I'm proud of that. And that's not, again, I feel sorry for myself. I am dragged up on Esler Road to get to a stage where I'm kind of going around the world. That scratter off Esler Road, Julie Preston, going around the world in the capacity as an international dominatrix. It was just, I'm still blown away, and I never took a second of that for granted, because, I would have the kind of my customers, or slaves, or whatever anybody wants to call them, clients, but I'd be getting flown first class to LA and put up on Rodeo Drive, or I'd had a suite booked on the Strip in Vegas, and it's like, I've never ever, I don't think I had a holiday till I was about 30. That was to Spain. Do you know what I mean? So it's just been an amazing journey, and amazing, and it's took me places, and I've met people, and I've tasted the finest cuisine, and it's been amazing. However, the flip side to that is, I am self-employed, or I'm self-employed. I'm registered with HMRC. I pay taxes. I'm registered with Hull City Council. I'm registered with Homicide Police. Okay, so everything is above board and legitimate.
Of course.
I couldn't get my face sometimes in as many places as I possibly could without trying. So Hull, again, I love it, and it's written through me like a stick of rock. However, it's not the most affluent place in the world, especially in this country. So there were times when I'd be in the Hull Daily Mail, and my car at that time was stickered up, hence probably why Victoria's not ever liked me. My car was blatantly obvious what I did. I was just on TV. I was in every magazine going. I'm on the Twitters and all the social platforms. There would be times when my phone would just not ring, and I physically could not do any more than I was already doing. So there were times like that where, okay, I'm on my own. It's only me bringing money in. I've got to pay my mortgage, all my utilities, blah, blah. So, there was a downside to that, because when you're self-employed in any profession, you do not get a regular income every week. It would hairdressers, builders, you get something different every week. So there were times when it was really difficult, and I had to start flogging stuff. I'd flog me 3 pairs of Louboutins that somebody just bought me off my wish list, and I would have to get by. But for the most part, it was the most amazing journey, and like I said, it's just, I'm really, really proud also, again, as an advocate, to say I am a sex worker and I am part of the sex industry. Now, other dominatrix and masters get really kind of upset about this, and they're like, we are part of the sex industry. Well, actually we are. I'm not selling it, but I work in it. So, and again, I'm proud, and I go on sort of sort of like seminars and give sort of like talks to people in this industry, and I say like what a positive industry it is. You know, people class it as sleazy, but absolutely the opposite. And there wouldn't be a need for our services if people didn't want them. You know, it's the oldest job since the history of ever since Tutankhamun was at school, and it will also continue to be until the end of time. So it's a positive, strong industry, very lucrative in lots of different ways. Some girls can, some are escorts, some are high class. There's it's a porn industry. It's massive. But it's just, I've loved every minute of it, even the times when I'm having to sell my kidney because I couldn't afford to pay my mortgage. It's been ace, and I just hope that I've kind of done all proud, and also people in my industry proud as well.
Yeah, and I think you have, obviously that reputation speaks for itself more, not necessarily in terms of just the sex work, but in terms of the passion you have for again people in the community of Hull. I think a lot of people love you, Julie, and respect you. And
Thank you so much. I mean, I don't know why, because I even get on my own nerves done, but like I said, love, it's through earning respect, because you can't command that, can you? You can't command it, and people have to trust you. I said, especially like the vulnerable folk, like who I've got now, and I've known them all for time, and they trust me, and I think that's a really difficult thing for somebody who's being let down by people and the system and agencies. That takes a real lot, doesn't it? And I'm really grateful to have these people in my zone. I really, really am. And quite a lot of the time, I prefer to break bread with these lads and lasses than I would, just like with other people, because they don't judge you. They're grateful. And I know people always say, they're all dirty smackheads and they're not all homeless. And I'm like, do you know what? I don't care, because if their life is still that cruddy that they've got to sit out in all weathers, getting piles, asking for money, which is very difficult for anyone to do, and they still need help. They still need a bit of bloody compassion. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, and again, they get criticised, they're all smackheads. And I go, well, to be fair, how are you any better? So you're an habitual cokehead on a weekend and you'll drink 2 bottles of red wine every night, but you're functioning, but you're no better than them. You're an addict just like them.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and that perception is, it is one of those things that I did want to touch on as well, was around, the kind of mental health in the sex industry, and what could be done to improve things in your view, as someone that's been doing it for a long time and obviously does these seminars and is connected in this industry. What would you like to see improved in terms of the way mental health is managed in the sex work industry?
Yeah. I'd like to see improved initially the laws and the sort of legislation in this country surrounding sort of street workers and people who work in parlours and independent escorts, because they kind of have to seem that they've got to go underground and they've got to lie about the profession, and it takes massive balls to say I sell sex. And if I offered that service, of which I never did, I thought, because I'll just be absolutely crap, I would have still had that all written all over my car, because I said I do have big balls. But it's really sad in that respect, and they have to sometimes lead double lives. The partners don't know, it's all underground, and also they're often putting themselves in very dangerous situations because it's not legalised and because they're ducking and diving. I think with regards to support sort of for mental health wise, I do think it's getting miles better, because I know Hull has it, Leeds has it, most places have it now, where there will be the kind of street angels that will go around, especially to the lads and lasses who work on the streets or in parlours, and they offer some type of support and signposting, but also they'll help with condoms and sanitary stuff, and people are caring about it. But I say I think more in our industry, it's more for the people who feel that they can't say what they do for fear of judgment, and ultimately I think that's it, and it would be a brave person to say I sell blah. Not many people do that. So like I said, I think it's getting better, but I think it's a very, very difficult job for these lads and lasses who sell what they sell, because I know a lot of them, and they do struggle mentally with the fact that they can't really switch off. They say, it's just a job, but it's a very, very intimate, personal job. And I always worry about their soul, and how it would affect them in later life, because I think it can be maybe feel a bit, sort of they find it a bit demeaning. Some of them, probably a lot actually, do it because they need the money. I know a couple of my escort friends who do it because they just love it, and that's brilliant. But to feel like you are reduced to having to do something where ultimately could have a long-lasting effect on you, like I say, on your soul and mentally, just because you need the money, that's really sad as well, and that's a worry.
It is, and like you say, obviously, if people can be more mindful and more supportive of the sex industry, I think things would be better. But that's just my thoughts. Personally.
I know, absolutely. I mean, everything could always be better, couldn't it? And like I still get stared at because of my tattoos. It's like, wow, we're not bloody Middle Earth.
Yeah.
But, so, like I say, some cities and some towns are very insular, so you can't go shouting about anything because it's like wasted on them. But I think as a planet, we are getting better and we are getting more, kind of not blasé about stuff, but we're more accepting. I'd like to think that anyway.
Yeah, I would like to think that as well. And in terms of being accepted, you mentioned earlier about your charity work. When did you first sort of decide? You talked about your how you do care about people. When did you first decide to start doing the outreach stuff that you do, the charitable work you do? Especially because there must have been some anxiety going from some of those experiences as a dominatrix rather to then putting yourself out there doing charitable work.
Well, the thing is, like, I guess everybody's got an alter ego, but I'm Julie Preston. Mistress Dita is an act, and I have to put on that act for that job. But Julie Preston, like I said, is a street person, end of story. So these are my people. But I can't honestly say what day I had an epiphany and thought, I'm going to be really good and just help people. I think ultimately, like I mentioned, it stems from being the oldest of 9, basically. 4 brothers, 4 sisters. I had a big part in their upbringing because my mum went back to work quite early. I never liked school, and school never liked me, so I remember kind of ditching school maybe about 12, 13. But it was on the sort of like basis of, okay, I'll let you ditch school if you have these. And to me, that was like a bloody brilliant get out of jail free card. to most like little teens and what have you, it would be hell. You wouldn't know what to do. But so I've always looked after. When I look back historically, I've always looked after people and looked after somebody. Now I can't say I'm maternal. I've never wanted any of my own. But I'm a great big sister and I'm a great auntie. Do you get what I'm saying? So I think this wanting just to kind of care comes from that. I can't think of any other reason. But so to me, it was a natural transition from whipping somebody during the day and then going out later on and just taking somebody that tent or ask for a tent or taking somebody that a sleeping bag. So I can definitely kind of differentiate between the two. But the two don't seem to go hand in hand, do they? They sound very, very strange. But Julie Preston is first and foremost, and Mistress Dita, earns the money to be able to let Julie do, what she does. Like I say, all self-funded, and again, if I don't have something, with the help of the legends in my city, we get them sorted as much as we can. We get them sorted.
Yeah, and it's lovely that you've been able to have those experiences. And a few more questions now, Julie, because I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by, you mentioned again some of the life experiences you've had. What have been some of the things that you will look back on, in your life, where you're like, whether it was to do with being Mistress Dita or whether it was the charitable work you do as Julie Preston, what are some of the things that you look back on and you're like, wow, I can't believe that happened to me, or I'm really proud that happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because it's a bit like, this is your life. You want someone to remand you. Come out with a red book and remind you what you've done with your life. But, all I can say is, and people always they're fascinated with what the meaning of life is. What is the meaning of life? And I used to say to people when I was younger, you're not meant to know. That is the meaning of life. You're not meant to know. Because if we know too much, then... but as I've got older, I'm reflecting now, and I'm like, do you know what? I'm a bit of a gobshite at times. I've got this calculator. I'll never make an accountant. But I've realised the meaning of life for me, the reason why I am here, is mainly 2 things. One, to make people laugh, because I am hilarious. I've just got funny bones, and I make people laugh. And the other one is I give a shit.
Yeah.
So for me, if I was to look back and I think, as long as I have made people laugh and actually give a shit, that's what I'm the most proud of, the meaning of life. You know, I've had things that I'm not proud of, and I've had, like, I want to, like, say about material things that I'm proud of. Like I say, you know, they call it touring in our game. It's when you would go to a different city or country. It sounds like you're Beyonce, but that's what it's called. But do you know what? The material things come and go, don't they? Like I said, all of my stuff now, I've either gifted it, flogged it, or it's sat in two storage pods in a storage place. And I've just gone back to basics, you know, living in a van. So all the material stuff comes and goes. But I think, you know, if people remember you and go, oh, remember her once, she did this, or she got me that, or she... For me, I've done it. I've won at life, you know?
Yeah, I love that, and I certainly I love that attitude. There's a question around that again. You know, just winning at life. I really love that. There's a hashtag you've been using on your Facebook post, which is till they close the lid, and I quite like that. What does that mean to you, Julie?
Well, like, in other words, I'll keep doing whatever I want to do until I die, basically. So I always say to people, I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to keep doing that until they close the lid, basically. So that's pretty much what it means. And I think it just kind of, it sums it up, doesn't it? You know, until they close my lid, I'm just going to keep being an absolute gob on a stick and fighting for causes and being in the corner of the underdog and just generally probably annoying people and clogging up people's news feeds on Facebook. But yeah, until they close the lid, love.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Two more then, because obviously we do a lot of work in music, and I've got, you know, I'd like to ask you, what are some of the things that you can tell me? Obviously there'll be some stuff you can't. What's some of the most rock and roll stories you've got for me, Julie? Whether that was in Vegas or LA or in Hull.
Okay, rock and roll, Lemmy, the god of Lemmy, I can't say too much. Partied here, partied in LA at the Rainbow.
Wonderful.
So that was like a massive, like, iconic highlight for me. Probably one of the best sort of rock and roll things. But a different kind of answer to your question. Musical sort of influences and inspiration, Madonna and Prince, because I class those two, and everybody laughs at me. I call them my mate. I mean, I was devastated when Prince floated, but I call Madonna my mate, and they go, she's not your mate. Like, what you want about? You never even met her. And I'm like, what I'll say to you is Madonna and Prince were the soundtrack to my youth, or the soundtrack to my angsty years, my going through anorexia, my being scared of my own shadow, all of these difficult times that I couldn't talk about, where I was very insular. Madonna and Prince were the soundtrack there, and they were my friends. They helped me get through that. So to me, I've got massive sort of, like, you know, pair of kudos. So like I said, it's a slightly different answer to your question, but yeah, for me, them two helped me get through, and everybody's got a soundtrack to the youth, haven't they? But yeah.
Absolutely. So Madonna and Prince are your favourite musical.
They're my mates. They're my mates. I mean, the thing is as well, it's really difficult in it to say. If somebody said, "Oh, who's your favourite?" I don't think anybody can say they've got a favourite. I just, because there's too, and especially when you get to 53, like, there's far too many legends. That have inspired you at different times over the years, isn't there? You know what I mean? It's a real difficult question, that, isn't it? Like, when people say, what's your favourite film? Come on. Like, there's no such thing, but... Yeah, go on then. I'm sorry, I'm deviating now because I'm getting excited because I'm off to see Madonna twice in the same year this year. So I've had to sell my other kidney to get the 2 tickets for that. But I figure, I'm like, God, she's 64. She's not going to bloody tour again. Knowing my luck, she'll be 84 and still tour. Then I'll be having to sell whatever else, like me gold teeth or something. So.
Yeah. On that note, do you have a favourite track, or like something you use for motivation, something you use to get you in the mood to either go out or to do whatever it is you need to do? What are your, like, 1 or 2 big motivational tracks, Julie?
It's always going to be rock. It probably isn't going to be Madonna or Prince, because I don't class them as kind of music to rev me up. So it's always going to be rock music, and that I can't think two. I'm thinking Metallica and Motorhead. I love Shine Down. I just mainly like the old school rockers. Hence why I do Download and Donington Park every year. So it's, you know, like the Maidens and all that sort of stuff. So anything for me that is loud and it's rocky, then that would always always kind of lift my spirits and get me ready. Madonna's great, but to me it's more easy listening, even though I love her. Same with Prince, but anything rock. And I guess that comes from, historically, my dad was a rocker and a biker, and my mum always had bloody Meatloaf and Queen blaring out. And again, when you're younger, that's just white noise, but ultimately what it's doing is it's drip feeding you subliminally maybe your kind of preference of music as you get older, isn't it? So I was always going to be a rocker, always, thanks to my parents. So
yeah. I love that, Janine, and thank you very much. Couple more then before we round up, before we do the plugging bit. You talked about how you struggled. You haven't always had the confidence that you've had. If anybody is listening, reading, or consuming this in whatever way, what would be your message to anybody who maybe is considering a career in sex work, or anybody who's just struggling to find that confidence in themselves? What would be your key tips for those people?
Well, firstly, the only thing that I can say constructively is if anybody is thinking of getting into any aspects or area of the sex industry, be that just from webcamming to online to actually real-time sessions, I have offered and I still continue to offer free sessions, not actual sessions, but free mentoring support. So they can always get hold of me on many channels of the Julie Preston Show or Mistress Dita, and that is all confidential and it's all free. So that's that answered easily. With regard to when it comes to gaining your confidence, again, I don't think there is a course or a school of confidence. I think, like I said, it comes with experiences and age, and that probably doesn't help people. But like I say, if you look at me now and now, and I can stand up and do lectures in front of thousands of people. In my 30s, which was really 20 years ago, I could not do that. I would go bright red every time someone looked at me, and I was very insular, and I never went out. And like I said, all I can say is it's just with time, and it will come. It actually will come. Which doesn't sound probably much help to anybody, but if I can do it, it can be done. And I said, with regards any other help and tips and anything, and equipment and registering with the HMRC, and just please, they can get hold of me through any of my channels, and it's all free.
Fantastic. And that is my last question. Is there anything that I've missed, Julie? Have I done my job properly? Is there anything that you'd like to promote or plug or add before we finish up today?
Oh, bless you. Do you know what? It's been absolutely ace, and it's a long time coming because it was pre-planned before the plague, wasn't it? So it's been ace to finally actually have a really good proper chat to you, and thank you also for being interested in me. But the only thing I'd like to plug is just be kind to people, do you know what I mean? And like I said, you don't know anybody's story, and I'm not saying you need to put yourself in any harm, or you need to, put yourself in a vulnerable situation with anybody you need on the street. But do you know what? Just bear in mind that they might need a brew, or they might need a chat. How are you doing, Flower? Because most of my lot say this is what we miss the most, is people talking to us, because people step over you, don't they, when you sit on the street. So I always sit with them. I generally get loads of money handed to me because I'm sat in my flip-flops and a t-shirt, and they think I'm homeless. So they're always like, oh, Julie, you can sit with me again. So obviously I pass the money on to them, but that's the only thing I can say. Do you know what I mean? It ain't compulsory, but these people have had really horrendous things go on. And also, I know people are they're addicted, but what I will say is nobody in the history of ever, from when you're at school and your father and your teacher goes, what do you want to be when you grow up? And somebody goes, oh, I want to be a nurse, miss. Oh, well, I want to be a fireman. Well, I want to be a policeman. Nobody's ever said, well, actually, I want to be an addict, lose my teeth, live on the streets, and also die at an untimely age. That is never a life choice of anybody. It's a choice you make, a decision you make, which isn't right, because once that drug has got you, it's got you. And that's as easy as it is. It could be out of curiosity, it could be out of a situation, a breakup in a marriage, or a bereavement. But once heroin has you, it has you. So again, just bear that in mind, because nobody ever chooses to do that, do they?
Absolutely. Treating people with empathy and kind of understanding, isn't it, Julie? I think that's the message I've got from that.
Yeah, because everybody always says, "Oh, you're on a 2 paydays away," and it is true. It is true. That literally could happen to anybody. And really quickly, because I know you need to wrap up, but I spent like 5 years working in prisons in Yorkshire. I wasn't disciplined, ironically, because I left that to go be a dominatrix. But I was education because I wanted to help, and I wanted to help through the gate as well, not just wave them off and then they're left with a discharge grant. But talking to people, and it's like, "Oh, what are you doing in the experiment?" I'm an old lass, so I knew everybody. What are you doing here, dickhead? And it was, oh well, Joel, I started drinking, then I lost my job, and then our lass dumped me, and then I got kicked out, and then I was homeless. And unfortunately, the people's patterns and lives are all quite similar. And I think, geez, I knew you when, and that literally could happen to anybody. And I've got a big circle of friends and family, like the bloody Dingles, but if I didn't and that happened to me, what would I do? Where would you turn? And they don't know, a lot of the guys as well, especially, they're proud, aren't they? They dare ask for help. So like I said, everybody's got a story, and again, it's as easy as that. It's as easy as that. One day they've got it, and then 2 paydays later they haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just treat people with that kindness and understanding, which is the overriding message, I think, of what you've been talking about most of this conversation is treat people with that kindness, that understanding, and that empathy.
Yeah, unless I say anything derogatory about Madonna, and then I'll shoulder barge him true Hessel Road style.
Absolutely. Julie, thank you so much for making the time for me.
You.